To ICSN's web series, Bridging the Gap. Today we're going to bring you a special conversation with Dr. Eke.
Well, Eke is my name. I am from Abia State in Nigeria. And before then, I was from Imo State in Nigeria. And before then, I was from East Central State in Nigeria. That will tell you how Nigeria has been broken up since the end of the Civil War. I trained as a doctor in Nigeria, practiced as a general practitioner for 7 years before coming to England to specialize in psychiatry. I practiced both general adult psychiatry and child and adolescent psychiatry. And I'm happy to be here with ICSN. Thank you.
So, the question we have for you today, Dr. Eke, and I guess for our other guests is the cry for Biafra the answer to the problem of Igbo?
That's quite a very difficult question to answer. I wish there is a simple answer to the question. But before you can have a broader perspective to the issue of Biafra, we need to go a little bit back. Where did Biafra originate? What is the origin of Biafra? How did Biafra become important in the history of Nigeria? And the short answer is that the Nigerian Civil War changed everything in Nigeria. Before the Civil War, Igbos were doing very well in Nigeria. And the Igbos, being very hardworking people, being very enterprising people, being people who believe in meritocratic societies, we are doing extremely very well. And as a matter of fact, in the 50s, Nigeria would have had its independence because the Igbos were ready, but the North was not ready. And the Igbos decided to wait for the North until the 1960s. Of course, I'm not going to give you the whole story of the Civil War. The facts of the Civil Wars, when I mean the fact as recorded, not as people have interpreted it, was that shortly after independence, political corruption set in, and the politicians who took over from the colonial masters, Britain, were not really doing what they're supposed to do. There was complete breakdown of law and order after the election, I think, of 1965. And corruption was so much that idealistic Nigerian army officers, and the funny thing about all the officers were trained in Sandhurst, they were British trained. They thought that, well, what we need to do is to take over power, so they planned a coup. Unfortunately, the coup did not go as they planned it, for the simple fact that the politicians, they wanted to eliminate. They could not eliminate the politicians, some of them from the East. They eliminated the politicians from the North and some from the West. For some reason, some of the politicians in the East were not in the country. Some of the people sent to eliminate them didn't do the job very well. It broke down. And that was really the beginning. When the coup broke down, the army quickly took over again. And the highest officer in the Nigerian army was an Igbo man, Ironsi. So automatically he took over. And he played a very prominent part in quelling the coup. Of course, the coup was headed by an Igbo man, Zogu, but he was born and bred in the North. He speaks Hausa, he identifies with the North. And there was a lot of other people. The sum total was that because the politicians from some part of the country, particularly Igbos, were not eliminated, some Hausas felt that it was a tribal coup, but it wasn't, and they interpreted it as a tribal coup. And instead of following the programs organized by Ironsi, who actually went out of his way to compensate the North for what happens. He promoted a lot of the officers in the army, he compensated them, he brought a unitary system. He reached out to them, but of course he couldn't pacify them, and the end result was subsequently, a few months later, the Northern officers planned a counter coup and they eliminated many Igbo officers. It was a bloodbath. And from then, the Igbos were being killed in the north, and Nigeria could not guarantee the safety of Igbos. Ojukwu was military governor of Eastern State because Ironsi divided Nigeria into continued the region, now 4 regions, and then appointed military officers following the coup. And Ojukwu happens to be the military officer of Eastern States. So when he saw what was happening, and there was a very difficult situation, and the people were agitating, the sum of it was that after failed peace attempts, Igbo declared Biafra, and we fought a 3-year war. And I will stop at that. That's how Biafra started. So in 1967-66, we thought Biafra was the answer, and we fought. And unfortunately, when you fight a war and you lose, the winner writes the history.
Yes.
And so I'll probably continue from the end of the war to where we are. At some point in the history of Nigeria, we Igbos felt very aggrieved to the point where we felt that it is better for us to have our own country than continue in a country where we are killed.
Yes, but Dr. Eke, let us not forget that the first group of people that wanted succession were the Northerners. Yeah. So the Northerners called for succession before the Igbos and before the Yorubas. They wanted succession way before independence. So that's another issue, is that Igbos did not call for succession. It was the houses that originally called for their succession, as they wanted to have their Hausa Caliphate, they wanted to have their emirs rule, and they wanted to have an Islamic state. So they called for succession before. And also, when you said about the corruption in the Nigerian government, the first Nigerian president elected was Nnamdi Azikiwe, and he wasn't corrupt. He was elected fair, and he was representing all 3 tribes, 3 major tribes, all Nigeria, as a rightful politician. He was elected, the first elected prime minister was an Igbo man, but yet he did not bring in any type of tribal warfare or segregation amongst those people.
I think what you're saying is correct, but we need to focus on the issues here. When you say government is corrupt, it means that the sum total of the activities of that government does not deliver what the average person would say is an honest way of delivering service. It does not mean that every single person in that government is corrupt. And I'm not talking about individuals. I'm talking about a system of government where people were squabbling, where people were killing themselves, where the rules of elections were not respected, to the extent that the governance could not take place. And what happened was that the military decided, we want to change. That was I'm trying to sum up, that was the tempo in the country then. So the military said, yes, we want to bring something new to this country. We want to take over, get rid of this politician, have a better democracy. It didn't work out. No. And then the result was that there was inter-ethnic politics, because Nigeria is a multi-ethnic nation. So people always give an ethnic interpretation to certain things. And the result of this failed coup attempt was that a section of the country, the Igbos, were paying the blood price of continuing in Nigeria. And event escalated to the point where Igbos felt that we would rather be in our own country. And then they declared Biafra. That is how Biafra, in the context of the Nigerian history, when I mean Biafra, I'm talking about Biafra as a country declared by Ojukwu. Yeah. Okay, that is how it came about. Yeah.
But also, Dr. Eke, I'm so sorry.
That's right, go ahead.
I just say also, at the time that Biafra was declared in 1967, the people that were living in Nigeria, they would have had parents or grandparents that lived as Igbos, not Nigerians. So it wasn't too far-fetched for them to want an Igbo-run country, which is what their parents had lived through. So my grandparents, for example, lived as Igbo people, not as Nigerians. So to call for them to go back to that way, it wasn't too far. It wasn't as if it was centuries ago, hundreds of years ago, or generations ago. People lived as Igbos one day, and then the next day, or Easterners, or from the Eastern region, or from the Eastern Protectorate, as they used to call it, and then the next day they're Nigerians, because a man from England decided that we're going to call you now. No, a man from England asked his girlfriend to say, what would you like to call this land? And she said, we're going to bung them all together and call them Nigeria. But, it doesn't make sense. Like, I live in Islington, and then tomorrow they say it's no longer Islington, it's going to be called Hackney. I remember living in Islington. I don't, you know what I mean? So at the time that it happened, people would have remembered living as Igbo people in 1960. Nigeria was only formed in 1914. So
yes, you're correct. Again, if we go back to 1914, when Europeans decided to partition Africa our fate was almost sealed. If you've read Gerard Damon's Gun, Steel and Germs, the history of the world is a history that those who have gun, germs, steel, technology, unfortunately rule those who don't have guns. So when the British came to Africa and fought several wars with the Benin kingdoms, with the Igbos, with Arachuku, and they finally conquered us. They made us a protectorate. Now they used the Bible, they converted us to Christianity, they exploited us. And they did the same thing in the north, they took over the north. For administrative convenience. Nigeria was amalgamated for administrative convenience. They found, yes, for the British, administrative convenience. They found the north easy to rule because the north had feudal system. So all they needed was to speak to the emir and everything happened. But with the Igbos, when you dig into history, they will see how some of them described Igbo people as obstinate, intelligent, and most of the struggle against British colonization of Nigeria was led by Igbos.
Exactly.
And when they amalgamated us, we were already part of the Southern Protectorate, and I don't think many people protested. We went along with it, but we focused on fighting for our independence, which obviously Zeeks, Mbonwezike, Macaulay, and so many other Nigerians fought. And the result was that independence was granted to Nigeria without firing a shot. War is always a wrong solution to any problem. We might have our reason for having, we fought the war, but we did not win the war.
But we didn't declare war. We declared independence.
Yes, whether we declared independence or whether we declared peace, the fact was that East Nigeria said, we want to be on our own. Okay? They had meetings, peace meetings, which they defaulted on.
In Ghana, in
Aburi Accord. And from there on, we made a decision. But what I want to stress for you, young generation, is that when you make a decision, it's your responsibility. You can give 100 reasons why you decide to take a particular position.
Yes.
But when you take a particular position in any conflict, you own that position. And that is something that is very important. When you are in a conflict situation and you decide, that is why you need to think carefully and you consider thoroughly before you decide. At that point in time, our leaders decided that it was in our interest to declare Biafra. And they did. I don't criticize them. But before they declared, they knew that the country they were declaring against had an army, had weapons, and they had none. They looked at their preparedness and they thought, we could this. They took their chance. But the fact is that we lost the war.
Because of starvation,
It doesn't matter how we got. The fact is that we lost that war. And after the war, what have we done? It's now 50 years. We lost the war. We have looked at the reasons why we lost the war. And one of the reasons why we lost the war was because we were not prepared.
No preparation.
And you do not send people to war unprepared. You do not declare a war before you train. Wait. You do not. Whether it was imposed on you or whether you declared a war. There is something we don't often talk about in the Civil War. It was the role of Zik. Zik, remember, was the president of Nigeria. And when the war was declared, he was on the Biafran side. Have you people researched his role? What he told the Jupu? How he wanted us to carry on this crisis. Ojukwu was 30 years old. Zik was quite older than him. So there are reasons why we went to the war. We fought the war, we lost the war. And when we lost the war, we experienced discrimination. We are treated like people who lost the war. Every single Igbo man who had money in Nigerian bank, it was confiscated. And we were given 20 pounds. My father received 20 pounds. There's people who took the case to the court. You can research Nigerian history. A couple of Igbos took the case to the court. And when you read the judgment of Nigerian court after the war, it will make you cry because you can see that people are using the justice system to legitimize illegality. Of course, we bought it. People went to the war, they went to court, and they lost.
So the no victor, no vanquished.
No, the no victor, no vanquished was nothing. They did that. And so from that nothing, 20 pounds, we have worked our way back.
Yes.
When you went for a job, there was discrimination. Today, the discrimination has continued. It is the continuation of this discrimination in employment, in education, that has caused the current agitation for Biafra.
Yes.
Today, 90% of people under the age of 17 to 25 who are hawkers in Nigerian cities like Lagos, Port Harcourt, are Igbos. Why? Because only about 10 to 50% of qualified Igbos get admission in federal government school. The situation is even worse now because they have introduced a program of Islamization. Yes. The JAM, the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, is now headed by a Northerner who is an Islamist. Yeah. The Ministry of Education today is headed by a Northerner who is an Islamist. They've just recently said they will change a program of Islamization. What they did was take Nigerian education curriculum in primary school and secondary school and bastardized it and introduced a lot of Islamic studies. So you can actually go to university and all you have studied is Islamic studies. And then you come out and you become somebody.
Can I say something? Okay, JAM, every year when they release the top, I'm not sure how many people they release, the top was always an Igbo person. For the last, I think, 15 years, an Igbo person has been top of JAM.
But JAM and
that is,
and usually from Imo State.
That is true, but there's something I will say about this. A moron is a moron, irrespective of how many geniuses that come from his ethnic group.
Yeah.
A genius is a genius, irrespective of how many morons that come from his ethnic group. Ethnic identity as a way to project, to say that people are brilliant because they come from a particular ethnic group is fraught with danger. Yes, there is a lot of Igbo boys who work very hard because we have a culture of working hard. So it is this culture of working hard that makes Igbos to excel. It is not because we are Igbos. It's because Igbos that work hard will excel. Yes. And as long as Igbos work hard, they will excel. Hausas that work hard will excel. Yorubas that work hard will excel. It just so, but the fact is that Igbos generally work harder. They are more self-motivated. Yeah. So, and anybody who is self-motivated works hard. So I run away from projecting Igbos as the most brilliant and others not. But I think we need to be careful about that. Yeah. Wherever you work very hard, you will succeed.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to come to this side of the room now. I want to also go back to the question. So, okay, I want to come to you. Why do you believe that so many younger generations are desperate for Biafra?
Well, I would say, judging from the a bit history that he's given us about Biafra, I would say it's due to the glaring marginalization that is existing in the Nigerian society. It happens that a lot of Igbo people are marginalized, just like he said, in the academic field, in the job environment, different sectors. We tend to see that this marginalization is happening, is glaring, even in the budget that is coming into the eastern region and everything. Employment in the military and everything, we're seeing it is so glaring. So a lot of people are saying that it doesn't seem like there's going to be a change. So the best thing is self-actualization. But where I always hinge is, how do you go about self-actualization? There should be a due process about it, and there should be a good way to follow it so that the bloodbath that happened about 50 years ago doesn't repeat itself.
I think based on, especially in my field, the younger people living here, and because their parents have come from Nigeria, they've seen the climate Nigeria has been over the past 50 odd years, even from the war. We've got even people that have lived through the experience of the war. And they've heard from their cousins, they've seen on, Nigerian television that, the Igbos are not doing as they should be. And they've probably read history about the Igbo people, they've read news articles, they've seen articles of, protesters being killed by police officers, Nigerian police officers beating Igbo people mercilessly, or those in the north being attacked for no reason. So the agitation is getting stronger, and I think that's probably why a lot of Igbos in diaspora are now saying, okay, I think maybe this actualization of Biafra should come, but it needs to be tackled in a way that we shouldn't have had it done in 1967.
Okay. Well, what are your thoughts?
Sorry, what was it?
So the question is, why is Biafra such a passionate topic for people living in diaspora?
Yeah, I just think because we have maybe more optimism as well. So, we live through, democracy, apparent democracy, and we want to be able to see that same democracy instilled in Nigerians. So the same way we had, a referendum, Brexit vote, Scotland had their succession appeal, because we are growing up in a Western society where this stuff happens seamlessly or without war or bloodshed, we have that optimism that hopefully could also work for our people back home.
Exactly.
Okay. So my question is, do you feel that real democracy can ever really happen in Nigeria?
No, because it wasn't a democratic society in the beginning. So as Dr. Eke said, the Hausas traditionally come from a feudal society. The Igbos traditionally come from meritorious or autonomous society. The Yorubas, they're a bit mixed because they have their obas as well as, their chiefs, and, they're mixed Christian and Islamic. So they have, cultural and religious influences as well. So I don't think Nigeria could work. It's too different. You couldn't put France, Italy and Spain together today and say you're going to be one country. So why would they do that with Igbo, Yoruba land and Hausa land?
And it's not just the Igbos that want to separate. Yorubas, I know, want their own piece as well, and the South as well, because I think in Nigerian history in the 60s, the people in the South actually had a mini rebellion, but it was thwarted by the British. So Nigeria from 1940 till now has been a series of corruption, genocide, over and over again, and it's clearly not working. So if not for the Biafra referendum that is being proposed, maybe a restructure could work, because the North own 19 of the 36 states, and there's only 6 states for the East and then a couple for the South, which is not really fair. And you can see even in government, most of the people in the high seat are Northerners, so there's equality is not there.
The representation is not
equal. It's not.
And also that South thing was another way of division.
Yeah.
And let's not deceive ourselves. We all have a compass. There is no South on a compass. It's either from the Southeast or the Southwest.
Exactly.
So South is just...
Yeah, the political zones in place are not working.
Your views are quite very, very interesting. You seems to be abreast of what is happening. But we need to take a broader look at Nigeria and the place of Igbo in a society. Mm-hmm. In a multi-ethnic nation, people have to be committed to nation building for it to work. Yeah. Any people can coexist together if they subscribe to the same rule of law. When America started, people thought America would never be a country, but they built a country based on the rule of law. But the problem with Nigeria is the problem of corruption and the problem that the North has an agenda that is quite toxic. North Nigeria has an Islamic agenda and is quite toxic. And for the past 7 years, I have said it. In the middle of Obasanjo's reign, the North declared Islamic State in the North that they will implement Sharia law. And at that point, I said that they have fractured the Nigerian society, because you cannot have a society, a country where one part of it is implementing Islamic law and the other part is a civil society. But Nigeria being an odd country, they've tried to coexist, thinking that by sweeping things under the table, it will not. But it hasn't worked, because actually the North has an agenda to Islamize the whole Nigeria, which is why they are trying to occupy all the positions. The Nigerian army today is virtually an Islamic army. And the judiciary is operating according to Islamic law when you sees them. And recently, there were a group of people from Kaduna State who beheaded an Igbo woman, and the courts set them free. They said they have done nothing wrong, because Islamic law does not allow them to kill a Muslim if he has killed in the name of Allah.
Yeah, they said that she said something about
you permit her to kill
someone. And so these are the issues that are driving people to think that us becoming independent will be the solution. But there's something I want us to know about Nigeria. When you talk about Nigeria, the Igbos are the cement that holds Nigeria together, before you think of breaking away. Of all ethnic groups in Nigeria, it is only the Igbos that can go to any part, buy a land, build a house, and live peacefully. Some people say up to 70% of the houses in Abuja are built by Igbos. A significant percent of the houses in Jos, Kaduna, Kano, Lagos are owned by Igbos. Igbos invest in all parts of Nigeria. And one of the serious consequences of the first civil war was that Igbo properties in some parts of Nigeria were declared abandoned properties because they know where it hurts us, they took it up, and it has festered. So for somebody to say, I want Biafra, you need to put all these things into consideration. You need to exhaust all avenues of countries existing together. Have we exhausted that? But I want to add this, if we are going to have a short break, is that there is a bigger problem in Igbo community and Nigeria than the demand for Biafran self-determination. It is the quality of Igbo leadership. The quality of leadership Igbos have had since after the war has not helped. Now, perhaps if we have had the right kind of leadership since after the war, things probably would have been different. Because you may not start the rain, but there's no reason why you should be wet.